Hello, and welcome to the Goon Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Let's Talk Arsenal series, our twice weekly show on a Tuesday and a Friday at 5 p.m. every single week, discussing, our Friday shows is our nice, laid back, chilled kind of show where I, for the next hour, have a chat with you guys. It's specifically in the chat box, of course. If you are watching this on playback, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below about any of the topics that we end up discussing today. It's very much free form. We have kind of a basis around what we're going to talk about to kick things off, which is, as you've seen from the title of the video, going to be talking about Saliba ever so briefly. But as I say, it's more of a chilled, relaxed vibe, discussion, talk about random casual topics at times. Social media and Arsenal comes up quite a bit on Fridays as we talk about. So grab yourself a drink, as I have done, and sit back for the next hour and enjoy. So we'll kick off with what is and welcome chat box, by the way. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Let's kick off with this. So Get French Football News. I'm going to talk about Get French Football News specifically in a little bit. We'll get to talking about them because it's a topic that I want to discuss and get your thoughts on. But let's first talk about the actual press conference and the reveal of William Saliba. And yeah, it was very awkward reading. I'm glad I don't work on Friday, so I didn't have to actually write about this today. So I could just, water shouldn't be that colour. Hey, look, this is some of the finest gin you will ever find. So, and it's Friday night, so leave me alone. I can do what I like. I'm a grown man. I'm 26. Yeah, I'm 26 years old. I had to think about that for a second. Let's talk about what he's had to say, Saliba. He said regarding if he's kind of seen the quotes that he has been loaned for his own protection. Now, I didn't see these quotes from Arteta. So I don't know if this is like a lost in translation type of thing or something, but I don't remember Arteta saying he'd been loaned for his protection. He was loaned to get experience, and Arteta talked about that. If he has said otherwise, chat box, please feel free to talk to me about it. But when he's asked about this, he says, "No, I have not seen that. Aside from that, I have no intention of responding to what's been said. I left because I needed to play." I mean, there you go. And then he says, William Saliba, I have not played for 6 months, not since March. Journalist says, you missed the Coupe de France final, which he smirks and says, that too. 2020 was a hard year for me. Let me just scroll down a bit further. So on what he actually said regarding the president, he said, let's see if he can rediscover enjoying being on the pitch and playing. At the end of the 6 months, we'll see. Today he's owned by a club called Arsenal. Everyone in June will come together and decide. A door is always open in life. When you have a situation where parties can talk, the doors are open. We will see. We are not there yet. I very much doubt that. I very, very much doubt that Nice are going to be getting Saliba at the end of this loan. I might be completely wrong. And things change in football very, very quickly. But I'm very much of the opinion that Saliba is gonna enjoy these 6 months playing. He's going to come back to Arsenal in a very, very different environment, an environment that does not have anywhere near the amount of competition for that right centre-back spot. And he will certainly, I'm sure with it, will be part of the league squad. We're losing Mustafi, we're losing Socrates, we're losing David Luiz. We are going to be moving on a lot of defenders this summer, possibly even sooner than that if we can get rid of some of them this January. Saliba will be in a much better position to get in and hopefully be part of the squad for the summer. Let's get your thoughts in the chat box and see what you think. If you haven't already dropped a like on the video, please make sure you do. It really, really helps us at TGT to get these videos out to as many of you as possible. Clive Palmer, the effervescent Clive in the chat from the Arsenal Vision podcast, always a pleasure, says Arteta should be allowed to assess a player. Issue was not loaning him in October. Big mistake. And if, for those in the know about this, obviously what happened and what went down in October with Saliba and the loan deal there's some worrying things as to the reason why that loan didn't happen. What I can say is on the club's part, why the loan did not happen in October. And unfortunately, that is a big problem that also affected. There was another deal that was affected by Arsenal's kind of silly behaviour at the end of the window due to administration. There was a player that could have Rekic, sorry, is what I'm on about. Omar Rekic, who of course signed this January. Another admin issue led to, allegedly, we should say, we don't want to claim things outright, but allegedly, there was a kind of an admin issue which led to him not obviously signing until this January and instead remained with Hertha until the summer. A lot of things went wrong towards the end of the Arsenal summer window, which led us to this point. Getting back onto what you were saying there, Clive, about Arteta should be allowed to assess a player, that is 100% true. And we had so many players at the club in that position that it would have been, I feel, in a situation with Arsenal in kind of the lowest point we've seen them for a long time, near suicide to throw a 19-year-old defender who wasn't in the best mindset into Arsenal's first team starting squad. Now, I was all for him kind of being included in the squad and maybe given minutes when here and where he could. But I was not of the mindset to throw him straight into the starting 11 over the likes of Rob Holding, who is much more experienced and was performing fine throughout the season. But we should have loaned him. And that has unfortunately damaged partly the relationship between the player and the club. And hopefully that's something that can be recovered. But I'm completely in agreement with you, Clive, that Arteta should be allowed to assess a player. He's new to him still. He only came back from his loan at the end of last season. Arteta's starting his first full season, and he has to make up his own opinion in his own mind about a player. And that's completely fair enough. And I'm hoping that Saliba in the next 6 months can show Arsenal and show Arteta that he does, in fact, deserve to be given an opportunity. Thank you for the donation, Ariane. Appreciate all the hard work, Tom. Really appreciate that, mate. That's very kind of you. Javier says, Coupe de France, not allowed to play in the biggest game of his career. He wasn't allowed to play. It wasn't in the case of he wasn't allowed to play in the final as a personal thing. That issue was between Saint-Etienne and Arsenal. They weren't able to come to an agreement because Saint-Etienne were asking for some pretty ludicrous things for what I'm hearing. We actually would have had to pay them, allegedly, to play Saliba because, of course, we paid them. Well, it was included in the deal that we signed him that he would go back on loan for the season, but there was some financial agreements within that loan deal, and had we have sent him back there to play in the final, they wouldn't have paid us for that courtesy. They were effectively, allegedly, asking us to pay them to play our player, which I can completely understand Arsenal not wanting to do. And furthermore, Arsenal wanted him to go under a strict kind of medical regime and fitness regime because he'd been injured quite a lot during the season. They were trying to protect him. So that is just insane what Saint-Etienne were asking of Arsenal during that period. Ed says the time away may be best for both sides. He can play and improve, then come back to a smaller squad with a clean slate. Smashed it. I mean, that's the perfect way of kind of looking at this situation for me. I don't really understand why there's kind of, how's the best way to put this? I understand the animosity a lot of fans have about the situation because us as fans have kind of been sold this dream that Saliba is going to be the next Varane, and we're very frustrated with having the likes of Mustafi as one of our marquee centre-backs. And also the form of the club didn't help the situation either. And if we're being really honest, during that period where we weren't winning, Saliba's inclusion wouldn't have necessarily changed that, would it? Our big issues were up top. It was our creation that was the biggest issue. And we lost to Burnley in a game in which we scored an own goal against a side with less than 1 XG. Saliba's not going to change that result. So there were so many of those instances, the Leicester game as well, where we obviously lost 1-0, where we're all over them. Saliba's not going to change that result. There was no point calling and begging him to be included in the starting 11 over the likes of Holding. That made no sense. But I understand the frustration in seeing a player that we all thought, especially with the price tag that was associated with, and it's not quite worked out yet. He's still exceptionally young. I know a lot of people have the issue with the contract situation, with him only having 3 years left after this season's finished. Could we signing up to a new deal? At the moment, I wouldn't bank too much money on it. It is an investment that Arsenal have treated pretty badly. Arsenal have not done this in the right way. Don't get me wrong, and there should have been a loan in the summer, but for whatever reasons behind the scenes, that didn't happen. But I think that the reaction to Saliba has been hyperbolic for sure, but it's a situation that Arsenal need to learn from and need to treat a lot better in the future. Javier says, Saliba is 19. Fans need to relax. He's not the next Varane or Van Dijk. He is not a star or a starter yet. He's a prospect, just like any academy player. Ed Welch says, William Saliba is a prime example of how fans overreact and put too much pressure on a young player. How many of top sides in Europe start 19-year-olds without any injury issues? We need to be patient. It's a really good point. His age is forgotten so quickly. I think, and I've kind of touched on this, one of the reasons as to why fans obviously want to see him is partly down to the frustrations of seeing the players that we do have. Mustafi, David Luiz, making consistent mistakes over and over again. Holding less so. I think Holding's got a lot of unjust stick this season for actually being relatively quite consistent throughout the campaign and being decent. But Saliba, obviously, they want to see play over Mustafi, over Socrates, over Luiz, and they'd rather see him put time and investment into him, which I understand. But he is only 19. And if you look at kind of the teams around us, you aren't seeing too many big teams playing these young guys. He's also been, unfortunately, the unfortunate situation with Wesley Fofana at Leicester has made this situation worse because fans have seen Fofana play because of Leicester's situation being very different. Leicester have very few centre-backs, and when Soyuncu got injured, it was basically between Fofana and Wes Morgan, a 36-year-old defender who's been there a long time and is pretty much past it, or you have a young 18, 19-year-old centre-back that you've just spent 40 million euros on. It's very, very obvious who of those two Leicester are going to choose to put faith in. That wasn't the situation at Arsenal. Arsenal had Rob Holding, they had Mustafi, and they had David. Put stock in a young 19-year-old centre-back to be your starter when you've got those players. So the Fofana situation didn't help the fan perspective of William Saliba whatsoever, which is a very unfortunate for him. Now, I'm not saying that if Saliba hadn't been thrown in, he wouldn't have reacted well. I'm not saying that at all. There is all the will in the world that he could have had a trial by fire and succeeded with flying colours, but there is no guarantee that that would have happened. Colorado says, I think we are tied for fourth best in terms of goals allowed. So it's not like our defence has been ridiculously bad anyway. Exactly. And I remember before the Aston Villa game where we lost 3-0, before that game, Arsenal had the best defence in the league. So it wasn't a case where our defence was hugely detrimental to our league position. It was the other end of the pitch that was the biggest problem. Rydog says, I like that Saliba seems to take ownership of the issue. That said, I can't understand now giving him any minutes at the moment. Yeah, I don't understand why we didn't give him any minutes beyond what we're aware of that went on behind the scenes. He didn't act too professionally in certain circumstances. Arteta even confirmed that. If you're going back and look back some of the quotes from Arteta, he speaks about professional problems that Saliba had throughout the year. And he had the personal issues that we're all very much aware of. Craig Barlow says Saliba as a 17-year-old was similar to Varane. Why the hype build it up? Saliba is quality, but he's lost his mother, which obviously was a very personal issue, and there's injuries as well. Relax, Saliba is the long term. There's so many things that fly around this scenario, so many kind of mitigating factors that affect this that I think a lot of fans have reacted to very rashly, for sure. No problem, Nico. Tom says, Tom, I like the Nketiah to West Ham as Haller replacement. Okay, so let's try it. Let's put a lid on Saliba. But before, Tom, I go on to your point, and I'll scroll back up and get your questions to talk about Nketiah. I want to talk about Get French Football News very briefly. I put a tweet out about an hour ago. You may have seen it. Let me just actually get it up on the screen for you. It's probably the easiest way to do it. Oh, there's me getting engaged. Where is it? Here we go. Blah, 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 blah. This is what I want. Okay, so I tweeted, Get French Football News do not have an anti-Arsenal bias. Christ, our fan base is paranoid. And I stand by that statement because, and I've had quite a lot of people respond to that and go, that's a load of rubbish, which people are completely entitled to disagree with that. And what I would say is I still am very much of the mind that GFFN do not have an anti-Arsenal agenda. I think that Arsenal in general, a lot of fans, and especially me, when I was younger, I used to really, and when I say younger, I mean like 6, 7 years younger, going through university, coming to the end of sixth form type ages. And I was looking at social media and Twitter, and I was looking at big accounts. By big accounts, I mean mainly at that time it was more newspapers. And I perceived things as a very anti-Arsenal thing. There was lots of stories, and I still think there are some out there that certainly do have a bias against Arsenal, Adrian Durham. And in terms of like what is ultimately real is that I know plenty of people at GFFN. In fact, on this channel, we've had Adam White on, we've had Jeremy Smith on. These guys have not got an anti-Arsenal agenda whatsoever, and they come on and they give you guys education, they give you insight, they give you knowledge about players that have been linked to Arsenal time and time and time again. If they had an anti-Arsenal agenda, they wouldn't be talking about these players in the way that they have done. Jeremy came on, who is someone that loves French football to his core, and was very critical of Houssem Aouar. And he felt that Arsenal may be making a mistake by going in for Houssem Aouar. So for me, I don't see it. Now, what I would say is that I feel a little bit sorry for the admins who actually run the GFFN account, because you have a situation whereby in the summer, Arsenal linked with Aouar. Anyone that was looking for any Aouar information was going to GFFN for anything. And they received a torrent of abuse from so many Arsenal fans, so many Arsenal fans that wanted the news, that were annoyed when it didn't happen. And they just completely kind of targeted that side of things. Now, I have written myself Forget Spanish. So for full, complete clarity, just so you're aware, I've written Forget Spanish Football News, which is a site, which is a sister site of GFFN. Now, your immediate reaction might be to that, to go, oh, Tom's been writing for those guys, so he's obviously going to defend them, which in a way you may expect me. I worked at TalkSport, and I've worked with Hugh Izzy at TalkSport, and yet I will openly criticise in some of the ways in which TalkSport has published some articles, has spoken on the radio station, because this is all opinions. Everyone should be entitled to their opinion based upon where you've worked, based upon who you've worked with. When TalkSport posted an article about William Saliba's debut against Brest, they were saying it was a nightmare debut. That is so wrong in comparison to what actually happened on the pitch. Saliba had a very solid debut. He was okay. He made some good touches. He had a good amount of interception, good amount of dribbles, solid passing. For a player that's not played in a seriously long time at a top level yet, because he's been playing youth football, that article was so far out of line. It was so wrong to post that. And I described it on Twitter as a lie. And I felt that the article was a lie. And this is coming from someone that has worked at TalkSport, and that will continue to, if they ask me to consult on European football, will happily do that again. It is not a case of, because I have written for Get Spanish Football News, that I, for instance, will have a biased view of Get French Football News. And I hope that point proves that, because you can be critical of somewhere that you have associations with, because it's opinions. Football's always about opinions. And as long as you're not undermining the credibility of something, that's okay. But I thought that it was a complete and utter farce, that article about Saliba. But I don't believe that Get French Football News, as their site, is in any way anti-Arsenal. Now, I'd love to get some of your thoughts. And if you do disagree with me, that's absolutely fine. And feel free to put a corresponding comment, and please explain as to why you believe it. Lord Jabberwock says GFFN didn't announce Aouar, therefore they are anti-Arsenal. Yeah, because they said that we didn't sign him, they must hate us. That's the only way. That's the only way. AD8 says Saliba also admitted that he himself thought he was not in rhythm and he was not ready physically either at the start. I see him understanding his situation at Arsenal, even if a bit disappointed. No issue. And I think the fair play to the kid. Like, fair play admitting that you weren't up to the level yet to be playing at the top level for that. Ed Welch says they're a media outlet. If things are mismanaged, they are evidently going to be criticised for it. I don't know what's been mismanaged, Ed. I mean, let me know. let me know. Sideways Bonobo says, let him come back next season and try and take that starting spot over the Preston Cannavaro. If he can get the Preston Cannavaro out. Ariane says, Tom, I'm really worried we've screwed up this Saliba situation. Even if he comes back next season to the first team, by the end of that season, he'll have 2 years left on his contract. And I think that when you look at like why there's so much worry, it's completely justified, Arian. You're completely justified to be worried. And and to be fair, most people probably should be worried because this is how we've handled it. It's been a complete and utter train wreck of a situation, and we've completely mismanaged it. And ultimately, I've been critical of Saliba in some of the under-23 performances because, I mean, that's all you can analyse. That's all we've got to go on. And I think it's still right to be critical. But there's a lot of context that goes with those performances. The fact he's playing in a situation where he's been playing senior football against the likes of Neymar and Mbappe and Aouar and Marseille and Lyon and Lille and all these teams. He's been playing against them. And then he's come back to Arsenal. And he's come back to Arsenal and he's not getting played, and instead he's playing youth football. And I know under very, very well-informed circumstances, he knows he is above the level of youth football, and he has said that behind the scenes that he feels that he is above the level of youth football, and that's why he's gone on this loan, and that's why it's the best thing that could have happened to him. Your man says, congrats on your engagement, mate. Thank you ever so much. Really appreciate your kind words. Daniel Roberts says, I think all media outlets are criticised. They are. Of course they are. There is no media outlet on earth that I don't think is ever going to get criticised. Because football is a game of opinions. Football is a game where if everyone had the same view, it'd be boring. If everyone on this channel had the same view as me, it'd be pointless. I'd just be sitting there going, yes, I agree with you. Yes, that's that. I mean, you look at where me and Drew can go back and forth on things. Me and Mike, me and John, all one of the guys. Me and Owen had a really good discussion about Arteta's time at the club. Me and Andy were talking about Arteta's time at the club, didn't agree on things. Me and Johnny didn't agree on things. If everyone just agreed, it would be so boring doing these shows. And that's why I don't sit in the chat and I don't block any of you from putting across a different opinion. I don't stop anyone from putting their opinion across. The only way that anyone is stopped from having their view and their kind of put their views across on the channel is if anyone's abusive. And I feel that TGT, we've kind of cultivated a very welcoming, open community of you guys where you can come into the chat box like we are now. You can put your view across. I might miss some of your comments because it gets pretty hectic in the chat box. It does. But ultimately, I feel like you can come here. You can put your opinion in. You're not going to be ridiculed. You're not going to be laughed at. You're going to be debated. You're going to be disagreed with, maybe. But I hope that you feel like you can come and put. I feel like you can come and put your views in. C Gun says, Tom, did you see the Charles Watts massacre on Twitter? I saw Charles Watts doing a very good job, is what I saw. Fair play to Charles. Fair play to you, son. Craig Barlow says, yes, we agree, Tom, 100%. Agree with everything you said there, Mark. Smashed it, mate. Ariane says, there are some great guys in the Liga community, and there aren't some. I mean, you might know, I love La Liga, and there are some... there's some journalists, some personalities that I don't agree with in regards to their views on La Liga either. But that's fine. Everyone has completely different views about things, for sure. Ed Welch says, Charles Ray showing made my day. What an absolute legend. Go check him out on Twitter, Joe, if you want to find out. It's so funny. Amir says he agrees on that as well. Conrad says, didn't Saliba sign for 5? Yeah, he signed for 5, but we signed him and then we loaned him back. So at the end of this season, it would have been a season on loan at Saint Etienne and then a half a season on loan with Nice and half a season with us. So 2 years have gone. So he'll only have 3 years left at the end of this season. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Right, let's scroll up to Nico's comment because I completely went off on a tangent to talk about GFFN. Where is it, Nico? Come on. It was a comment about West Ham and Nketiah. You might need to retype it in the chat box again, Tom, if you can, because I think it's disappeared off my... Oh, no, I found it. Here we go. Tom says, I like the Nketiah to West Ham as a Haller replacement rumour. Getting a fee for him, convincing Balogun to sign a new contract. Right, what I'm going to do, let's see. This show goes on for quite a while. We've still got 35 minutes left. So let's see. Let me just text the West Ham correspondent at The Athletic and see, what do you make of the Nketiah West Ham rumours? Right. Let's see if the Athletics West Ham correspondent replies before the end of the pod, and then Tom, we'll talk about Nketiah. Okay, how's that for a deal? Let's scroll down and go to Michael saying, "Did I say 2 left? Oh, sorry. So if I said Saliba only had 2 years left on his deal, sorry, he has 3 deals. That's my bad." Michael Velasquez says, "What's your thoughts on Eddie? Do you think he's the future of Arsenal?" Again, we'll come back to that. Using the contacts. Yes, I am. We'll come back to the Nketiah stuff a little bit later on. I've got a reply straight away. That was quick. His words are, "It's just paper talk." Okay, mate. Thank you. So there you go. Word straight from the mouth of the man at The Athletic. It's just paper talk. So I wouldn't buy into it too much at the moment right now. So if he does go, if there is any truth in it, then great. Oh, that's a funny comment. I thought West Ham were in for Moussa Dembele from Lyon, I believe. West Ham tracking Arsenal striker as possible Sebastian Haller. That's from Jack Rosser on Twitter. Obviously, the standard is a paper, so it could just be paper talk right now. We can have a look at that, though. Let me just go on to Jack Rosser's Twitter, and I'll see what he's saying. Jack Rosser. The standard. And is he talking about Nketiah? If my internet wants to work. West Ham tracking. Okay, it's an exclusive piece on the standard, so let's throw it up on the screen for you guys. Stop sharing, share screen, go on to the standard. Here we go. Okay, you can see that, right, guys? Yes, you can. Okay, so West Ham are tracking Arsenal striker Eddie Nketiah as they search for a replacement. The Hammers have sold Haller for £20 million. The 21-year-old has got 18 months left on his contract. It remains to be seen whether Arsenal would entertain the idea of a loan. A permanent deal could be more attractive, as it definitely would. I'd be very surprised if we let him go on loan. And Nketiah's future could also have an impact on what happens with following Balogun, who is in the next final 6 months of his contract. Arteta wants to keep forward at Arsenal, and Nketiah's departure would present Balogun with more first-team chances. Okay, so in regards to the initial reaction of Eddie, I mean, as you've heard from just texting contact at The Athletic, it's just paper talk right now. It could grow into genuine interest. There may be. It isn't exclusive by the standard. I rate the standard as a site. Simon Collins, who works there, complete credibility with those guys. So if they've heard something exclusive, I'm sure there's something in it. Maybe West Ham are considering an offer, but right now it's very, very early stages. So if we can sell him, I think it'd be a really good move for Arsenal. If you can get anything between 10 and 15 million quid for Nketiah, I think that's a really good deal for us. He's only got 18 months left on his contract. It's a player that Arsenal, I feel, can look at as expendable. If we then move him on, Balogun may be inclined to maybe stay on beyond the 6 months that are left on his deal. If that happens, it would have to be done pretty quickly to convince Balogun that he's going to stay. So I personally, in my realistic expectations, what I expect to happen is Balogun will still leave. I expect Nketiah will be here until the summer, and then you might see Nketiah go in the summer. That's kind of what's realistic in the world of football. Are West Ham really going to pin all their hopes onto Eddie Nketiah to be their striker after losing Haller, after spending 50 million euros on him for them to leave a couple of years later? I'm not sure whether they'd really target Nketiah to be that guy. They've got Mikel Antonio, who's now 29, is he? I mean, let me check that. Mikel Antonio, how old are you? He's old. He's 30. Okay, so he's 30. I was 1 year off. So he's 30 years old. They are going to want to replace Haller as an option because Antonio's fitness is up and down. He can get injured now and again. Eddie could be that guy, but I genuinely think I still think West Ham is maybe slightly above where I see Eddie Nketiah's future. I've really kind of struggled to pin a lot of hope on him as going forward as a long-term top Premier League club option. The stature, the physicality on the ball, his style of play, he needs a lot of creativity behind him. I don't think Arsenal need that from a striker. We need more than just a poacher. We need a striker that's going to put a lot of work in, create opportunities for themselves. We need a Lacazette and an Aubameyang kind of hybrid in a way. If those two kind of as a hybrid would be great and a lot younger. We need more than what Nketiah can give us. Ed says Eddie to West Ham is an easy line to draw with their need. It makes sense. It does make sense. Like if you were thinking to invent a story, and I'm not saying that the Standard are inventing the story, but if you were to come up with something, Arsenal want Nketiah to move on. West Ham need a replacement that is going to provide competition for Antonio. Nketiah does kind of fit that in a weird way. So it does make sense and it makes it believable, but there could genuinely be some substance in what the Standard are saying. Colorado Guna says that wouldn't be the worst scenario. If we go out and got someone like Edouard, who is still young, then Tyrese John-Jules would be the new young striker coming up. And a lot of people, I've said this before, I think a lot of people are maybe sleeping on Tyrese John-Jules, have maybe forgotten a little bit about him. They've got very excited about Moller coming in. They're very, very antsy about Balogun maybe leaving. And I think people are actually forgetting that we have another young striker in John-Jules coming through who is still very highly rated. So let's just chill on that one for a bit and move on. So let's see where the discussion is going to go next. We've got half an hour left on the show. Where do we want to kind of take the next little bit of the conversation? Let's scroll up and see what you guys are saying in the chat box. Balaji says, Tom, would you consider sending Willock and Nelson as well on loan? I think you could send both of them on loan. More so Willock for me. I don't see where the opportunity is going to come from bar the bench. And if he is going to just keep coming off the bench, I'd rather we gave more time elsewhere. We got Danny Sebastian to the end of the season, so we've got cover. I don't really know what Joe Willock's best position is, to be honest. He's kind of a hybrid between a 10 and an 8, and he kind of just gives you a bit of legs. He doesn't really give you anything more than that on a senior level. Euro assist, he scored a couple of goals, but on a senior level, he's never really been able to impact Premier League games, and that's a worry for me, to be honest. Let's scroll down. Rydog says Jermaine Defoe could score from further than 6 yards out. He can. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to go into too much detail about an ex-Spurs player, to be honest. 88 says, a big follower of our youth and under 23 football. I know how good Balogun is, but it will not be good look for the club to bend over backwards for a 19-year-old. Okay, let's talk about this as I've had a drink. Excuse me. So, actually, the best way to start this off, in the chat box, put me a wage offer that you think for Balogun, who is, 18? Still following Balogun. He's 19 maximum, surely. What is a legitimate 19 years of age, 6 months left on his contract? How much is a reasonable amount of money per week, wage, you think, that is an acceptable figure to convince Balogun to stay? A 19-year-old that has no Premier League minutes at all, that has scored 2 goals in 3 matches in the Europa League, and it's come off the bench against Manchester City in the League Cup. What do you think is a acceptable figure? If I try and find an Arsenal site that tells us kind of an estimate of Arsenal player wages. Okay, Arsenal 2021 payroll. So if I give you an idea about some of the other players in the squad, and then you can give me an idea. Bukayo Saka, according to this, is on 10 grand a week, which I'm not sure. Jesus Christ, if that's true, is an absolute bargain. Joe Willock's on £20,000. This is all reportedly, so take this with a grain of salt. Emile Smith-Rowe, 20,000. Rob Holding, 25,000. Ainsley Maitland-Mainsley, 35,000. Saliba, £40,000 a week. Runnison, £40,000. Nketiah, 45. Gabriel, 50. That's Magor Hayesh. El Neni, 50. Chambers, 50. Danny Ceballos, 51. Cedric, 75 grand. Kieran Tierney, 80. Pablo Mari, 85. Mustafi. Martinelli's new contract is 90 grand a week. That's insane. Socrates, 92. Granit Xhaka, 100 grand. Nicola Pepe, 100 grand. Bernd Leno, 100 grand. Sead Kolasinac, 100 grand. David Luiz, 100 grand. Hector Bellerin, 110,000. Lacazette, 182,000. Willian, 192,000 pounds a week for Willian. Partey, 250 grand a week. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, 250 grand. Ozil, 350. Lucas Torreira it's only given me base salary and Guendouzi as well because they're on loan. But there you go. That gives you some kind of that that gives you some kind of ballpark to have a discussion about what you think we should be offering him. Bukayo Saka, 10 grand a week. I think that may have been before his new contract, to be fair. He might be on a significantly amount of more than that. But Joe Willock's on 20 grand a week. Nelson's on 15 grand a week. The max you should be, in my view, what you should be offering Balogun is a 20 grand max contract a week. It's the next 4 years. So until he's 23, and you probably do an extension before that to go up if he's earned it. 20 grand a week max is what you should be doing. But let's see what you guys are saying. 5k max, says Mark. 15 to 20,000 pounds per week, says Carol. Very much in the ballpark for me. Saka's now on 40 grand a week, says Billy. Let's scroll down a bit more. Let's scroll up because I know a lot of you posted before that. Joe Kerr says 20 to 35. Daniel says 20 to 25. Hagos says 25,000. Colorado Guna says 20,000. Freddie Stebbing says 20 to 25,000. 100k, lol. But honestly, 10 to 20k. Ed says 35,000. Billy says 15,000. Victor says 20. Tom says 20. Javier says 15,000. Joe says 35 to 40. Wow. Really kind of loving these big wages. Akene says 30,000. Okay. Now let me give you the reason why the 100 grand a week chaos, stupid suggestion, why it's so silly to offer a player that amount of money. And even £50,000 per week, if you go down to kind of a more realistic figure, going up into those 40s, £50,000 a week on a player that's 19 years old, that has 6 months left on his contract, that has played very, very little senior football. If you are a club, and if you are a youngster coming through the ranks, and say all of the youngsters coming through under 18s, under 23s, they're looking at Balogun, they're looking at his contract situation, and they're thinking, this guy's running his deal down to having 6 months left on his contract. Why would I ever sign a new contract when I can myself run my deal down like my mate Balogun is, and then I can just ask for 30 grand? And because if Arsenal turn around and go, no, we're not going to give you 30 grand, you've barely played any minutes of senior football. Well, they're going to go, well, you gave Balogun 50 grand a week. You gave Balogun 40 grand a week, 30 grand, whatever. Whatever contract offer you give Balogun becomes a benchmark. It becomes the norm. It becomes what every other contract after that gets measured by. You cannot commit to giving Balogun a stupid contract because it would ruin and utterly blow out of the water all of the other youngsters coming through. It would influence every contract negotiation that happens from this. For him, a stupid deal. It is much better that you let him go than giving in to the agent or the player, whoever is asking for a silly amount of money. But it should be being given for that. Rydog says, just like Willian's. The difference with Willian is that he was already at a Premier League club, already on a ridiculous amount of money anyway, and he was a free transfer, which always is going to influence the amount of money. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't Arsenal players that will look at that Willian contract, look at the contribution that he's given and go, something's not right there. And I'm not saying that Arsenal might look back at that deal and say that they made a little bit of an error, as they would have done with the Ozil situation as well. Arsenal are not perfect. But what we can't do is we can't criticise the club for the Willian contract and then go and give a ridiculous contract to a 19-year-old that's barely played a minute of senior football for Arsenal. It makes no sense. It's hypocritical to say that, and it's hypocritical to suggest that. Billy says, spot on. People need to realise this. Messi didn't earn 400 grand a week at 19 and he's at Barcelona. Sahil says, Tom, who do you think we should get rid of, go for the goalkeeper position? Nice topic. We might come on to that in a second, Sahil. Gary Hardy says 20k with incentives on playing time and goals to take it up to £40,000. Wow. Balaji says, spot on, Tom. Maybe Saka is the benchmark. Maybe him, Martinelli, those types. If you start putting on performances in the senior side, you should be rewarded. Let's not be real. And I think, let's have a minute to reflect on that. Martinelli and Saka are on a lot of money now for what they've done. But the thing is they've performed at the top level consistently for the time that they've been at the club, and they've earned those new deals, and we've protected their value. And if anything, we've increased their value by giving them more money. So Balogun has not done what Martinelli and what Saka have done to earn that type of contract. Yes, you've got to try and convince him to stay. And the club have messed that up because they should have agreed a contract a year ago with him. And they should have given him more opportunities at a younger age than they have done. At 19, you would have hoped that he may have been given some opportunities. Unfortunately, the likes of Nketiah have kind of blocked that route. And I think maybe we've invested too much time into Nketiah, hoping that he turns into something that ultimately I don't think he's ever going to. We may have messed up. We may have missed the boat with Balogun. But what we can't do is we can't sacrifice our wage structure just to keep a kid who could be great, who could be good. There is a lot of PTSD at Arsenal surrounding the Serge Gnabry, Jeff, Ismail Benassa, Donyell Marlon, all of these guys. There's a lot of PTSD, but there's also been a lot of youngsters that have left Arsenal and gone on to do nothing. I mean, do you remember Javier Amici? Do you remember that guy? Let me just search him up. Let me check I'm actually saying the right guy. Is it Javier Amici at Arsenal? Yeah, Javier Amici. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that wrong. He left us to go to Hamburg. He's now 20. He left us in 2019. There was a lot of kind of furore around him when he left. How much did he actually leave for? He left for 2.25 million quid. Decent fee, if you're being real. That's not a bad fee at all. Let's have a look this season. What position is he playing? Right wing. He scored 2 goals in 2 games this season in the, whatever that is, RL Nord. Maybe that's the youth team for Hamburg. 2019-20, Amici went off, played for Hamburg, played twice in the second Bundesliga, didn't do anything. All of last season played. He was on the bench for most of their games, and he came off the bench 1-2 times in the whole of last season. And this is what I'm saying, is that for every single Gnabry, every single Jeff, every single Donyell Marlon, every single Ismail Benassa, there is a Javier Amici. There is a Gedion Zelalem, whoever came up with that in the chat. Is it Rydog or did someone else bring Zelalem? Yeah, Segan. Zelalem, another example, has gone on to do absolutely nothing. You can't bank all of your hopes just because he's shown some promise in the youngsters. He might go on to have an amazing career, and if he does, I only wish the best for him. I genuinely do. I don't like wishing ill health or ill form on players at all. Benicophobe, another one. Do you remember we were actually linked? He was doing really well at Wolves, and we were linked at one point with bringing him back. And now look, there are no guarantees that these players are going to go on to have amazing careers. You can't do it. You just can't. I hope that makes sense to people in the chat box. I hope that makes some form of sense. Lord Jabberwock says, remember, we still have Konstantinos Mavropanos. What happened to him? He's on loan at Stuttgart. He's doing fairly well, to be fair. He was injured at the start of the season, but he's come back and he looks good. The manager there, I think they have an American coach, actually, rates him highly, really does, really likes him. And when he comes back, we've got now quite a lot of young centre-backs coming through. Saliba, Rekic, Mavropanos, McGuinness, Ballard. We've got a lot of young guys coming through. De Silva, Brentford, done quite well, to be fair. De Silva's done very, very well since moving to Brentford. And some are going to do well. Like, you can't always say that, oh, we can afford to let them leave because they're not always going to do well. But you can't get held to ransom. You can't get held to ransom on these players. Fans using Balogun to attack Arteta, it's pathetic. I agree with you. Seth says that's why Eddie should have gone on loan this season and Balogun given playing time. It's like Tyrese John Jules. We've handled that situation a lot better. You could have said that Nketiah could have gone on loan, but if we're being real, he was at the point where he had to kind of step up. For me, this was the season. This was the Nketiah season. This was the year where you went, either Nketiah proves he's worth it from performances from the bench in the Europa League, and he nearly took it. When he scored that goal against West Ham, or Sheffield United, West Ham it was, wasn't it? It was all very much like, maybe we've got a kid that can do this. But then we started playing him over Lacazette. Then we started him in games. We started him against Everton, and he had a great chance, and he completely fluffed his lines. And it's those moments. You only get very few as a footballer. That's why there's very few players of the millions of kids that want to grow up to be footballers. Football careers are made on very few chances. You look at Martinelli and the chances that he took in the Europa League and then in the Premier League. Those chances are what really define players. And I just think that maybe at the moment, if you're judging it on what's happened, Nketiah kind of has missed that opportunity. Should we have given Balogun more chances? Maybe. The timing of him coming through is very unfortunate, and I think maybe we'll suffer from that. But you just can't bank everything on that player. Makes no sense. Ryu Maiichi, the Japanese guy. I think we sold him to St. Pauli in Austria or Germany. Ryu Maiichi. What is he doing now? How old is he now? He's 28. Hold on. I am not younger than Ryu Maiichi. No way. How is he 28? Is he still at St. Pauli? Oh my God, he's still there. No way is he still there. That's mental. We sold him in 2015, and he moved from their first team into the second team. Oh God, that career, Jesus Christ. Oh, that's a real shame. That's a real shame. He was meant to be like, wasn't he described as like the Japanese Ronaldo at one stage? Oh my God. So he hasn't even played this season. He's not on transfer market if he has. That's mental. I can't believe that. How is he 28? That's so old. That makes me feel so old that he's 28. That's ridiculous. I remember being at school and going, this kid's going to be mad. We've got him from some Japanese high school and he's going to come in and be amazing. McGain, it's another one. McGain left us for Barcelona and people went mad. Now he's at Oxford United on loan from Nottingham Forest. It's just, do you remember Reece Oxford? Like Reece Oxford was at West Ham. He had an amazing debut for them against us at the Emirates. He went to Germany. Where is he playing now? He's playing for Augsburg, is it? Let me have a look. Yeah, so he's playing for Augsburg. He's played 7 times this season, all from the bench bar the last 2 performances, playing as a centre-back and as a defensive midfielder. He's a bit part player at Augsburg. Like, sometimes these kids just don't go anywhere. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. And we'll go back to this point over and over again. You can't just bank all your hopes on them coming through. And that's why ultimately Arsenal sometimes I think they're scouting. The last topic that I want to talk about is scouting today. On the last kind of topic that I want to talk about with you guys, and let's talk Arsenal as we do this every Tuesday, every Friday. Drop a like on the video if you're enjoying the content, if you're enjoying the discussion, if you're enjoying having your comments read out, please drop a like on the video and subscribe. So 2020. Make sure you drop a like and subscribe. If you haven't watched Death to 2020 on Netflix, you have to see it. It's great. But the last thing I want to talk about is scouting. I've had a couple of discussions with people on Twitter today. In fact, what I'll do is I'll get you up the tweet that I put up, and I want you guys to tweet and respond to it and get your thoughts going on the discussion. Retweet it, quote it. I want to hear your thoughts on the tweet that I've put up, which is about scouting. Let me just find it a second. Here we go. I'm going to get it up on the screen so you guys can see it. Share screen, Twitter. That's the one. Okay. So this tweet, and this is why we should scout them. It was in response to LT Arsenal. I'm sure lots of you follow LT. He's a great guy. We've had him on the channel. Really nice guy. AFC scouted Buendia for more than 18 months, but thought to be unwilling to meet the £40 million release clause. Or not release clause, just the amount of money that Norwich wanted. And I said that this is why we should scout them for less time, but for more intensively. Wait too long and the price skyrockets and competition becomes too great. You look at the likes of Buendia, Naby Keita. We scouted Naby Keita when he was at Red Bull Salzburg. He left for 15 million odd quid for RB Leipzig and then went off to Liverpool. Szoboszlai, I don't need to say anything about him. You know, you know enough about him by now. Upamecano, again, he was scouted by Arsenal at Red Bull Salzburg. I wrote a piece on him when he was still playing there. I've seen the guy develop into just what is one of the best defensive centre backs, but just one of the best centre backs in Europe. He's not perfect. He's still got things he needs to work on. He's still young, believe it or not. He's still young. He will still need to improve certain aspects. Hazard was the one. Hazard's the kind of the one I look back at when I was a youngster and I very first kind of getting into looking at the game, looking at players. Hazard at Lille was one of the first players. If you look, I was going back through my personal account, which you can still follow, which is now my media account at Tom Canton Media. You can follow it at the top right-hand corner of your screen. One of the first accounts I followed on that was a Hazard to Arsenal Twitter account. And we were linked to him like 2 years before he left for Chelsea, when he was just this young, diminutive winger, playing out on either flank for Lille, and he was going to be the next big thing, and he became the next big thing at And he went to Chelsea because they won the Champions League, and he picked the Champions League winning club, and we were in for him at that point. But we had no clout. We had no ledge to stand on with the Hazard deal. And with that one, if Arsenal had just gone in the 2 years earlier, instead of moving for players like Gervinho, who played at Lille at the same time, and we spent like 50 million quid in the season that we signed Gervinho. That was a season that we signed Arteta and Andre Santos and Per Mertesacker, if you remember. So many mistakes. Scouting someone less doesn't mean you scout them for 6 months and buy them. I'm talking like a year. I'm talking like at the end of the Premier League campaign with Buendia, when he's created in the top 10 chance creators in the Premier League, pounce on him. Norwich are going down, they're relegated, pounce on Buendia in that moment. Like, you've pretty much made your mind up on Ozil at that point. Pounce on him then, get him for a good amount of money, 20 to 30 million pounds. Now he's had a stellar season, and he's back up to 40 million, and Norwich are competing to come back up, and he's worth so much more because he can earn them 100 million. You're never going to get him. Upamecano, you've waited too long to go for Upamecano because he's gone to RB Leipzig. I know that's a very well-trodden route, but there's lots of players that have not gone from Red Bull Salzburg and have moved to another club because people have jumped on them quickly and they've realised that there's talent there. And you need to look at some of those players. Sasa Masuku, the Hoffenheim defensive midfielder, very good young player, moved from Red Bull Salzburg. Haaland Haaland's a tough one. He was only at Red Bull Salzburg for a year, moved from Mulder. It's just some players that we just sleep on. Campbell left and went to buy Leverkusen. No, did he go to Dortmund first? He was at Leverkusen and Dortmund, and he ended up, now he's at RB Leipzig after all of that. But some of these players, like Sadio Mane, went to Southampton. Who else? I'm sure I can think of some. Stefan Leiner, the Borussia Mönchengladbach right back. Not Hannes Wolf, he's on loan from RB Leipzig now. But there's more, and this is just off the top of my head. If I had time to research it, I could give you more. But it's just frustrating that Arsenal don't scout players like more intensively. And now we've made like loads of them redundant as well. Like, we've got rid of so many scouts. And we've talked to Oliver Zezega on the channel, who is a scout for a club in Switzerland. We've had him on the show. If you type in Oliver Zezega, the Gooner Talk, you can watch that interview with him. He talks about how scouting works. He works for a club in Switzerland, and how they look behind the scenes, not just at matches. And I just wish that we would scout players more intensively for less time and take some risks. Upamecano left Red Bull Salzburg for RB Leipzig for 9 million quid. And that's 9 million quid that we could have got him for. And that's what's so frustrating, that we didn't move for these players. Minamino, Lord Jabberwock says, for 10 million. I don't think he's been given enough of opportunity at Liverpool. Neither has Naby Keita. Sabitzer was on loan from RB Leipzig to Red Bull Salzburg, so it's slightly different. Edward says, Tom, I know you're a writer, but how do you think of all these examples? It's an obsession. This is going to sound really stupid. Football Manager and FIFA. When I was a kid and I played FIFA a lot, I loved making obscure teams. And that's how I got into finding Red Bull Salzburg, believe it or not, is actually through FIFA. I used to play with Valentino Lazaro when he was a bronze player, looking into like Belgian leagues, Swiss leagues. Just I enjoy looking at youth players and seeing them coming through and trying to find the next big thing. And obviously the guys, I remember talking about Marco Asensio for years, like not for years, but a couple of years before he came through at Real Madrid. He was really good at Mallorca, went to Espanyol on loan, got 13 assists on his season, came back, scored in the Super Cup against Sevilla, and just became like the next big thing. And then he got his knee injury that kept him out for pretty much a whole season before lockdown happened. It's just, my memory is terrible regarding anything else. Ask the other half. My memory is terrible. I forget everything she tells me. She claims I'm not listening to her, but I'm just claiming it's a bad memory. But regards to football, like, it's just, it just sticks in my mind. So I can't help it. It's just how it is. I wouldn't say love RB Leipzig. I'm not a huge fan of Leipzig. My German side, I like Gladbach a lot. I like Dortmund. I don't think I haven't. Sometimes I liked watching Serge Gnabry there. So Spanish football is the one that we slept on. We sleep on a lot of Spanish football. FIFA is how I found Tillemans at Anderlecht. It's like people, obviously, FIFA is a very bad way. You can use FIFA in a good way and FIFA in a bad way. FIFA kind of helps me like learn about a lot of players, like a plethora of players. But looking actually like how they're rated and how they play, you can't go on FIFA. Just because a player's fast or is good on FIFA doesn't make them good in real life. That's very different. But actually, like the database of players within the game and within Football Manager and with that. Now, Adam Hlojek at Sparta Prague, Czech Republic, Youth International coming through on that side. Really highly rated. We've done a tactical breakdown of him on the channel. And also doing this, like doing TGT has helped me learn about more players, has got me into like even Scottish football, looking at players like Jeremy Frimpong. We're going to do a tactical breakdown on Christie, because we've been linked to Christie. I've already gotten the expert insight on that, so I'm going to work at putting one of those together. So it's just honestly, it's underrated. Sometimes FIFA's a little bit of a joke to people about how they find players. If you're rating players based on what they're like on FIFA, that's stupid. Never do that. Don't rate about if a player's good on FIFA, it doesn't mean they're good in real life unless they're like Neymar and Mbappe. But in terms of learning about like and just becoming aware of more players, FIFA's a good place. FIFA's a great place to do that. Football Manager, a great place to do that. But mainly you need to do more research. Go actually watch other leagues, watch other teams. I actually use Y-Scout a lot to try and find and watch players, and doing the player profiles at 101 helps me do that too. So yeah. Once you start recommending players from your FIFA Youth Academy, you've gone too far, says Ed. That is, yeah. Gary says the cheek to even ask for that much when you've hardly played. I think you're watching on playback, Gary, but I know what you're talking about. Lord Jabrock says, Tom, we missed out on Manuel Neuer. I remember he was in an interview where he claimed that he was in deep discussion with a club before he decided to stay at Schalke. Wow, if that's true. I mean, I'm not surprised he went to Bayern in the end. That's what Bayern do, ultimately. Gary Harley says, Ruffier as a backup goalkeeper for 6 months, if he would be back up. Yeah, the big question is what you said there at the end, Gary. If he would be back up, yeah, do it. 6-month cover, really good idea. But he was frustrated at Saint-Etienne because he'd been dropped by Claude Puel. They played, who's the backup guy? Who's the backup at Saint-Etienne? Is it? Oh, I can't remember. I can't remember who it is, but he's not as good. But there was like a controversy with him, and then he didn't turn up to training, and then they sacked him. So he's available on a free transfer. I don't really expect us to go for him. I expect if we did, you'd get the classic response that is silly. Remember Emiliano Viviano? That'd be that type of signing. But to cover us for 6 months, yeah, that makes sense. Sahil says, come on, Tom. We are getting Draxler for free now, thanks to the prolonged scouting. Oh, God. Oh, Julian Draxler. It's not a transfer window without a link to Julian Draxler. It's just not a transfer. Moulin, thank you, Gary. That's who it is. There was a comment about Mwepu. Where is that? Yeah, South London's finest B. Thank you so much for the dropping in with the comments. Says, Tom, who is Mwepu? Apparently, we are looking at him as an alternative to Brighton's Basuma. Mwepu is a centre midfielder at Red Bull Salzburg. So, believe it or not, I know a little bit about him. He can play kind of as a defensive midfielder. He can play as a box-to-box midfielder. He's done very well this season in the Champions League. He complemented Szoboszlai really well. He likes to progress up the pitch. I see a lot of Thomas Partey in his game, a much kind of primitive level. He's one that you would go, RB Leipzig are going to go and get, but they've got the likes of Konrad Laimer, who's another player that went for Red Bull Salzburg. So I'm not sure if there's a space for him at RB Leipzig anymore. He's someone that Arsenal should move for. That if Arsenal can get a deal that's just around £10 million, 10 to 12 million pounds, which is completely fair enough. I'm going to try and get to you some expert insight on him, more than what I can tell you from Tom Midler, who is at the other Bundesliga podcast. So hopefully we can do a tactical breakdown on him. I'd be delighted. Honestly, I just want to see Arsenal look at that market more. I just want to see Arsenal look at the Red Bull Salzburg, look at what they do, use them, because what Red Bull Salzburg do really well is they look at the African market. I mean, Mwepu, Zambian, Patson Daka, Zambian. They've brought in 3 guys from, was it Kenya? I think. Maybe it's not Kenya, maybe it's somewhere else. But they've brought in 3 guys 18-year-olds, all from the same club in one African country. And like, it's because they can do it, because we can't do that because of work permit issues. But we need to start looking at taking advantage of the clubs. We also need to come up with a partnership. We need to find ourselves a sister club in Europe. That needs to happen. Leicester have got one. Brighton have got one. Sheffield United have got one. Manchester City have got 3. They've got Girona. They've got Troyes. They've got Lommel in Belgium. We need to find a partnership with a club in Europe, because with the Brexit issue, we're not allowed to sign youngsters under the age of 18. We then need to get a sister club so that the sister club can then sign them before their 18th birthday. They develop until they're 18 at the sister club, and then you sign them from that sister club when they're 18, and if they're eligible. If they're not eligible, then you wait for them to develop, and then when they are, you buy them. We need to do that. I mean, Red Bull Salzburg, a lot of people look at Red Bull Salzburg as kind of RB Leipzig's sister club, which they are. But Red Bull Salzburg have their own sister club in the second tier of the Austrian league called FC Liefering, who are like they are basically the Red Bull Salzburg B. They're the youth side, but they're playing competitive football in the second tier of the Austrian league. And Arsenal need that. Arsenal need to have links with clubs. We had before, like, I remember, I think like 10 years ago, we had a link with Inverness in Scotland that we were going to loan players to them. We've obviously got the link with Colorado Rapids in the MLS because it's owned by Stan Kroenke. But we don't have a legitimate link with a club in Europe, and we need that. Man United are currently in the process of looking for a club to become linked with because of the Brexit situation. So I'd look at a club like in France, like Istres. Istres are a really good club to look at. They brought through the likes of Naby Keita, came through there. You just need to look at some clubs. France is a great place to look because they've got so much great youth coming through. Austria, of course, but you're never going to get as good as Red Bull Salzburg. So maybe you want to look elsewhere. But I mean, Rapid Vienna, I've got some really good kids coming through. Yusuf Demir coming through there, young. He's Austrian. I'm not sure what his other heritage is, if he has got other heritage. But bottom line, Arsenal need to find a sister club. That's just what we need. Like, we just need to find a sister club. Easy Al says the sister club works for everybody. They get financial security, and we have the pipeline for kids. Exactly. Beveren, yeah. If you remember. Who went to Beveren? Was it Kolo Toure? Yaya Toure? I think Yaya Toure, when he was on like a trial with us, was there. Let me check that. Yaya Toure. Yaya Toure went to Beveren. Yeah, it was Beveren. So that they no longer exist, I don't think. I don't think Beveren are actually a club anymore. So but the thing is, we just need one of those clubs. I'm seeing some great suggestions from you guys. Le Havre, Metz, Auxerre. Some really, really good suggestions, guys. I mean, this is why I love having you guys in the chat. You're so knowledgeable. Graham Stack, Matt thought, yeah, Graham Stack went there, and there's an amazing video, and you should go on YouTube, and he punched a fan. If you type in on YouTube, Graham Stack punches fan, Belgium, you'll find it. It will come up. It's genuinely, I'm not joking. There was like a pitch invasion, and like lots of the opposition fans approached Graham Stack, and he punched one of them. Absolutely mental, crazy stuff. We need a link with Spurs where we send them all of the Deadwoods, says Mark. Yeah, that's a good idea. Bayern seems to have one with FC Dallas. Do they? I don't know what players have come through from them. I'm not as clued in with Bayern. Drew would know a lot more than I would. So, yeah, maybe that's something that we need to look at in the future. Javier says, FC Dallas is one of the best youth academies, not the best, but really good. Red Bull New York is the best as well. 30% of the youth gets into the first team. The FC Dallas, they're the side that have Brian Reynolds, are they not? I might be getting that wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's FC Dallas that have Brian Reynolds. It looks like he's going to Juve. So maybe that. Red Star Belgrade from Serbia, we should look at. I'd look at a Czech Republic club. I think a lot of people are kind of sleeping on talent coming through there, but Serbia is another good shout. Dortmund as a sister club. Lille is our sister club. We've signed so many players from Lille now. You look back, Nicola Pepe, Gabriel. We're linked with who was the guy there that we were linked with? Is it Samare? I think it was at Lille. So, yeah, Slavia or Sparta Prague. We need to sign who from Liverpool? Very big lad. Fair enough. Chris Rydog says Chris Richards. They just invited 3 FC Dadashu players on trial. Chelsea is our sister club, says Saeed. Yeah. I heard that we're demanding 30 million for Eddie. Lol. That's not going to happen, is it? I think, wow, we've gone over an hour. I said an hour. It's been an hour. So there you go. Every Friday, 5 p.m. Tuesday, 5 p.m. as well. I'm joined by a guest. Let's Talk Arsenal every Tuesday, every Friday, 5 p.m. Sit down, have a chat with you guys. Nice, chill discussion. Talk about lots of different topics like we just have now. And with the January transfer window is going as mad as it is, it's a good time to talk about that. We're back tomorrow for the we're playing tomorrow, aren't we? We're playing tomorrow. I'll be on with Hugh for the watch along. So if you're not obviously tuning in for Hugh is his channel, make sure you do be there. We haven't lost a game yet while I've been there. I know I'm tempting fate, but haven't lost a game since I've been on. So I'll be there with Hugh for the match, and then I'll be straight on here after the game to talk to you guys in reaction to Arsenal's FA Cup match with Newcastle. There'll be a preview first thing tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock in the morning, that'll be fun to do. So 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, preview for the Newcastle game. Yeah, that's it. Drop a like on the video, guys. Really appreciate it. And fingers crossed the game goes ahead with all of everything that's going on at the moment. I mean, there's so many that are getting cancelled, but Newcastle have kind of had their outbreak. We haven't had one yet. We've had a few players go, but fingers crossed. Stay well, stay safe, guys. Drop a like on the video, subscribe if you're new. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, and as always, up the arse.